hiding our mother. In the center of attention is a woman whose name is Handan and her story. She gave birth to her first child at a young age. Screenwriter Surma Janik and the filmmakers are trying to bring two themes to the viewer at once. Although motherhood is sacred, not every mom can be called a mother. Handan had a very hard life, however, her husband abandoned them to their fate and left the family. Despite all the difficulties and trials, she loved her children and gave each of them motherly warmth. Very often life taught Handan some hard lessons, but she always withstood all the trials. After all, she has a beautiful daughter and son and a job in one of the prestigious ateliers in Istanbul. One day, Handan is assigned to take Zaren and Dundar's measurements, and the atelier is going to make them for their wedding anniversary. When Handan goes to their house to try on the dresses, she attracts the attention of the owner of the house. Stopped. The action unfolds around a girl and a young boy. The events develop in such a way that each of the characters unwittingly finds themselves in a difficult life situation, and they have to try hard to be victorious, to try hard to be winners. The young man participates in boxing fights not only to earn a living, but also to find a use for his strong fighting character and to fulfill a desire to test himself in fair fights with dangerous opponents. Not all of the athletes' fights end successfully, but he consciously chose this road. You cannot call calm and the character of the girl, who differs from many peers not only in her flashy manner of dressing, but also in her defiant behavior. Both characters are quite unusual, so there is nothing surprising in the fact that after one chance meeting, they decide not to part again. Prisoner. In the center of attention was one of the most successful prosecutors, who was able to build a brilliant career. The hero of the series has achieved success not only in work, but also in his personal life. He has a loving family, and many of those around him consider him an ideal family man. The prosecutor has a charming wife named Zeynep, and together they are engaged in raising their young daughter. Every day he has to face crime and therefore always have to make a decision whose side to choose. But he cannot be attributed to a corrupt official who was ready to indulge criminals. Ajit is accustomed to seek justice, but at the same time often risks not only his life, but also his loved ones. The hero of the series had his own methods of conducting work. He perfectly knew all the laws, and also demanded their strict fulfillment. The prosecutor never made concessions, and even if in front of him was the most influential and wealthy person in the city, he was firmly convinced that no matter what his social status, every criminal must be punished and held accountable for what he had done. In the life of the protagonist, everything went his way, and therefore the man could not even think that one day he himself will have to face a very serious accusation. The usual life of the hero of the Turkish series is turned upside down after he finds himself behind bars. He is charged with a brutal murder, but the circumstances are such that the prosecutor himself cannot remember anything. He has suffered short-term memory loss and remembers absolutely nothing of his life over the past months. Despite this, he does not despair and is going to fight legally and intends to prove his innocence by all means. The Storm Inside Me. This series tells about the lives of two sisters who are trying to be happy, but life throws them new challenges. The main characters are looking for love. Ezgi has been in love with Emre for a long time, so she expects mutual feelings from the man. Deniz's sister is going to marry this handsome man, which Ezgi dislikes. She comes up with a plan to get the man she loves away from her sister. However, neither the plan nor the wedding was destined to take place. The sisters, who spent their entire childhood together, begin to clash. The heroines become real enemies for each other. The Game of My Destiny. The series will talk about the life of one very strong girl and her future fate. Her name is Asai, and from the very early years she had a very difficult time. Very early, she was deprived of her beloved mother, and almost most of her life had to be under the strict supervision of her stepmother. The woman constantly put pressure on her stepdaughter. Asia constantly had to endure from her stepmother humiliation of various kinds, and it had a very strong impact on her character. When the heroine was 17 years old, then fate brought her together with a simple guy named Simul. Not much time passed, as Simul offered Asya to secretly get married, and then she could leave the hated house. The girl could not refuse. Soon the loving couple had 2 children, but then something went wrong. Asai noticed that Jimul became withdrawn and gradually distances himself from the family. All this leads to the fact that Asai begins to fall into a deep depression. At that moment, Simul met another girl who came from a rich and influential family. Besides the fact that she was beautiful, so did not know the need for finances. He thought that life with her would be much easier. When Jemal abandoned his family, Asai began to despair, but soon she meets Mahir and life again finds bright colors. As it soon turns out, the man grew up in an annex of the mansion belonging to the family of Semal's new lover. Thus, the circle begins to narrow. Hey, Sultan. The plot of the series tells the story of the most prominent preacher of Islam, Abdul Qadir Jilani. The name of the respected and highly honored Abdul Qadir Jilani is widely known in the East. It was Abdul Qadir Jilani, the theologian and preacher, who founded the Sufi order of Kaderimin. Abdul Qadir Jilani always preached peace and humility, and called for social equality. As an 18-year-old young man, Abdul Qadir went to Baghdad and began to study the Hanbali madhab. Then, for many years, Abdul Qadir lived as a hermit, showing by example how little a man needs in life. Years later, in 1127, Jilani returned to Baghdad and began to preach in public places. Abdul Qadir Jilani was very concerned about the poor, and tried to help them.